Good afternoon, YouTube. How are you doing today? First, I want to say peace and blessings to everyone that's decided to come on my YouTube video and listen to just some things I wanted to share today. I actually have the day off today, so I thought I would just share some things that I wanted to send out to the JW and ExJW community. One of the things that I just wanted to highlight to all the people that are listening is that, I definitely understand how difficult it is to come to terms with what the JW cult is all about. It's very difficult to accept that it is a cult, but even harder is the fact that it is actually a publishing empire. And all of the people that actually go to the congregations in the Kingdom Hall and go to Bethel are actually part of a very, very ingenious way to have free labor. And basically, I don't want this to be a long video, but I did want people to actually think about what it is that I'm telling them, because again, I'm not one who's going to sit there and cite all of the different references. I literally want people to find out for themselves. Just do the research. I'm just going to talk about the epiphanies that I had. And it was very difficult for me to realize what I was born into and what so many of my family believes in unequivocally. I totally get why it's difficult for people to even wrap their head around the fact that they have been duped and they have been lied to. I don't, and that's one of the reasons why I said in another video that I'm not blaming the people that are in the organization per se. I totally understand where you're at. I mean, it's not just that it's very organized, and I said this before, the amount of organization that they have in this religion is something that both Russell and Rutherford preached against, even Franz. So a lot of the things that people that are fairly new or that has been basically deleted out of the newer text that they're giving, they're not even showing the historical background of the organization itself. So a lot of the practices that are done are things that there was a lot of controversy over. And people that don't realize it, they're so committed to being a part of this organization that even when you have facts pointed out that there have been a lot of incorrect doctrine, incorrect predictions, they still hold on to it because that's all they know. I mean, it takes a very strong person to get out of the organization. They've been trained. They've been trained to get up and knock on the door. They have been trained to go to the Kingdom Hall. And that environment of having all these people that you grew up with, and it involves your family, it's very difficult to break away from that, even if you know that it's not true. So I get it, and I totally understand, because people are like, now what am I going to do? How am I going to live? What am I going to have in place of what I've been a part of for so long? And see, they trained you so that you're so attached to all of this that you can't even fathom walking away from it. What I'm trying to do, and I think what a lot of people that do the YouTube videos and have the websites, is that they're really just trying to get people to awaken. And that's really why my first video is entitled The Awakening, because it's only when you follow your instincts and follow your heart and start asking questions that you start to realize that maybe all of these changes in doctrine, all of these predictions, that are happening, and they've just upped the ante. And I'm really concerned for my family that's a part of it, of where all of these, the preaching work is complete. All of these things that they're doing is going to lead. It's funny that almost 8 years ago, I wondered what their end game would be. And I'll talk about that in another video, because I really believe that in terms of this being an apocalyptic religion, where the basis of it was about the end of the world that they were predicting and how they wanted their followers to not be a part of the world, I only saw a few outcomes that they would be left with when Armageddon hasn't happened, and it's not going to happen. So they're going to have to create a false Armageddon, or they're going to have to create a man-made catastrophe of their own making, where they're going to dupe their members into doing something like walking away from everything. And I saw a video, I think it was 2 days ago, where people showed the Jim Jones cult. Those people didn't realize they were in a cult. They were just following the teachings of someone, or in this instance, a group of people. But whenever you have a doomsday cult, whenever you have a doomsday religion, and you're preaching about the end of the world and what your members need to do, that right there should be it's a concern. But that actually wasn't what I wanted to talk about today. What I wanted to talk about is an epiphany I had. And this again was when I started doing some graduate work in world religion, and I started traveling, and I started talking to some people, high level people, high well-connected people. And I started just doing a lot of research. And one of the things that happens when you start informing yourself and educating yourself and meditating on what you've learned is that your brain starts to open up, and you have these really, really huge epiphanies. One of the bigger questions and bigger epiphanies I had to do with one simple question. Why is it that you have to turn in hours when you go into field service? I want everybody to meditate on that for a minute. That has nothing to do with the scriptures. I mean, whether you do 5 hours or 200, it shouldn't make a difference. If someone's unemployed and they don't have anything else going on in their life, then of course they're going to be able to do 100 hours. But if we're just relying on Jehovah, just because you go out and field service for 200 hours doesn't mean that you're actually a better Christian than someone who is going out for 5 hours. But why do you need to turn in your time? Because that has really nothing to do with serving God. And that has nothing to do with your heart. There's no logical, spiritual reason why you need to log your time in, unless, of course, you're working for a publishing company who needs to know who are people that are out doing their work. So their work and how they're supported is by free labor. And let's go deeper with that. So free labor means that you're actually doing work and you're not being paid for it. And so I talked about this in my first video because I have a freedom to talk about a lot of things, because all the people that would have stopped me from going deep in this are now deceased. But let's just talk about my grandparents on both sides. They spent hundreds of thousands of hours going door to door. My grandparents never received $1 for that. So one of my grandparents, she didn't have a lot of money for her retirement. And she really struggled at the end of her life. And all of the time that she spent going door to door, she never got anything for it. No retirement plan, no nothing. But she did get recognition in the Kingdom Hall until she got too old. And so that's the problem that I have with the way that elderly people are treated in the Kingdom Hall, because as soon as my grandmother was too old to go out and preach in the field work, she didn't get the recognition, she didn't get the concern, she didn't get the love bombing that she got when she was giving in all those hours. So let's walk with this. So you give free labor, and the more free labor that you get, the more accolades that you receive in the Kingdom Hall. So we've already established that there's no spiritual basis for allocating time. You think that someone who's a child molester that goes out in the field service for hundreds of hours is any better than someone who works and supports their family and only able to give 10 hours a month is better? Don't fall for that. I'm asking people to think, let's think reasonably about this. So you have people that have to do, I started saying was 100 hours, but my understanding now is that it's 90. So 90 hours makes you a regular pioneer. But in order to actually receive any type of position, and it's only male-based, you have to be putting in a certain amount of time. Why is that? Why is time used as a barometer for how you can have positions in the Kingdom Hall? If it's not a publishing empire, if it's not about slave labor, they have convinced the members that the only way that you will have any type of recognition is if you go door to door and sell their publications. Because if it's not about that, then you shouldn't have to take anything with you. You should be able to just go and preach the Word of God. Preaching the Word of God doesn't require a set time. You shouldn't have to report set hours. So that's the first part of my dialogue. And I just want to talk about the fact that Jehovah Witnesses have been lied to, because they keep telling you that there is no other group of people that goes door to door. And that's actually false. There are actually a lot of organizations, a lot of Christian organizations that do it, but they're telling you that they don't. People preach differently. They may not preach the way you preach. That doesn't mean that they're any better or any worse. They're still preaching the Word of God. The Word of God did not say specifically that it had to be done the way Jehovah Witnesses are doing it, right? And let's go even further with that, because they know that. So I'm going to move on to Bethel. This is another part of the deception. So in order to apply to Bethel, you have to be a regular pioneer. So you have to show that you've actually devoted 90 hours a month for a certain amount of time to even be allowed to go to Bethel. What do you do when you go to Bethel? You're supporting the publication empire. And I totally would love for someone to tell me different, because I actually know people that went to Bethel. And it's really funny because a lot of people that were just going to the congregations, once they went to Bethel, they were flabbergasted. So here's another thing that people need to realize. All these other religions that have people that go to go away to nunneries or monks and all these type of things. These people are actually taken care of. They have retirements. They have things set up. And that was another part of my criticism, because before I actually talked to people and went to monasteries and talked to nuns and talked to monks and talked to priests and found out that they are actually well taken care of. So if they're giving up their lives to work for their ministry, they're actually revered and taken care of. So they have health benefits. They have things that they are given even after they leave, so that they're not left out in the cold. That's not what happens when people go to Bethel. There are enough people that have talked about Bethel that you can find out for yourself. They're given a penance for what they do. They're given a small amount of money for utensils, for things like toothbrush and toothpaste, for toiletries and such. They don't get a lot of money. They don't have a healthcare program. They don't have a retirement program. When these people were let go, when Bethel laid all these people off, they walked away with nothing. Here's why I want people to realize that this is a slave labor camp. Because when people go to Bethel, they're not able to go out in field service. They actually have to work. They work, doing cleaning, but a lot of them have worked with the publishing part of it, working with the presses, working with the distribution, and that actually counts for their hours. So think about it. If your hours are really not about your spirituality, or if it is, why is it that when people get to Bethel and they start going and having to do hard labor, that they actually have used that time the same way that people that are actually going out in the field service are using that time? And it counts towards how they're viewed, which is absolutely ridiculous. This is all about free labor. Free labor that has no benefits once you are too old or you are laid off. There are a few people, brave people, that have talked about what happened when they were laid off from Bethel. They don't have a retirement plan. They didn't even get $5. They had absolutely nothing. But here's what the Jehovah Witness, the Watchtower and Tract Society had: hundreds of hours of free labor. These people could have been out there doing something for their lives. How many of these people are now homeless? How many of these people are now struggling? The reason that they were able to build up Warwick and all these other places is that they attach your spirituality and your devotion to this organization to how many free hours that you would give to helping them. But are you reaping the benefits of it? So they're telling you that if you give your free labor, stuff that they're not going to give back to you, you're not going to get a health care program, you're not going to get retirement, you're not going to get paid, but somehow they're promising you that you're going to be seen as a great person in Jehovah's eyes, and people are falling for it. And let me tell you, I saw it with my own eyes. Even my grandmother, who was devoted to the Jehovah Witness ministry until she died, but I heard her because I had to send her money. My cousin and I, both people that are not Jehovah Witnesses, had to help pay for her funeral. All the hundreds of hours that my grandmother gave, none of the Jehovah Witnesses came together and even helped with her funeral. It is free labor. And I want people to wake up to What they did with all those people that were in Bethel is totally tragic. No other religion does that. No, don't let them fool you. The Catholic Church does not do that. If you're giving up your life to go work at one of their religious organizations, or you're going to something like a Bethel, you get some kind of payment. They're looking out for you. This organization has duped people. Why do you have to put your time in? Why does it matter? It matters because this is how this publishing empire figures out how to get people to keep peddling their merchandise free. This organization banks on free labor. Free labor where you don't get anything back in return. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I just wanted to talk about it because, again, I've seen it in my own family. I've come out of my pocket and helped even people that looked down on me, said I was going to be destroyed in Armageddon. But when they were struggling and suffering, they had no problem asking me for money and trying to emotionally manipulate me, because I'm not conditioned and indoctrinated by that group. I do have compassion. I do have a heart. I don't want to see my family out on the street because they gave their free labor to an organization that refuses to compensate them. And the fact that they keep telling them Jehovah's going to take care of it is a cop-out. So, again, I just want people to think about what it is that I'm talking about and just follow it logically. Just think about it. This organization needs to do better, or people need to stop blindly stopping work, stop taking care of yourself, because, okay, it's going to be 50, 100 years from now. Armageddon hasn't been here. A lot of people that did this their whole lives are going to retire. They're not going to have anything because you never got a job and you blindly believe that Jehovah was going to take care of you. Then you're going to go to all your non-Jehovah Witness family and ask them to help you out because we woke up, or we never was indoctrinated in the first place, and we actually have a little bit of something to help you. I want people to realize that those of us that are fearless enough to talk about what we know, it's not because we're bad people. We actually care. All the terrible things that my family has said and done to me has been a motivator for me. I'm that fearless because I've seen them suffer. Even when they suffered, they still didn't want to turn on this organization, and I understand that they were so indoctrinated that they couldn't. They just couldn't do it. They were too caught up. But for those of you that are willing, please don't be afraid. It's okay to say, maybe they're not telling me everything I should know. With that, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Be blessed. And don't forget, knowledge is freedom.